Inaugural. Good afternoon, friends. I welcome you all to this press statement ceremony following the inaugural 2+2 dialogue between the foreign and defense ministers of India and the US. There are a couple of administrative announcements before we start. Interpretation facilities are available in Hindi and English. English is on channel 5 and Hindi on channel 6. I also request you all to please put your phones in silent mode, and please note that due to time constraints there will be no questions after the press statements. To begin the proceedings, may I request
Secretary of State Shri Pompeo, Secretary of Defense Shri Mattis, मंत्रिमंडल में मेरी सहयोगी श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण, भाइयों बहनों और मीडिया के मित्रों, भारत और अमेरिका के बीच पहली 2+2 वार्ता के अंतर्गत हमने अपनी बातचीत अभी संपन्न की है। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं, वार्ता की ये नई व्यवस्था जून 2017 में वॉशिंगटन डीसी में प्रधानमंत्री श्री मोदी और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप द्वारा लिए गए निर्णय के आधार पर बनाई गई थी। ये निर्णय रक्षा एवं सुरक्षा मसलों पर हमारे द्विपक्षीय रणनीतिक संबंधों को और आगे बढ़ाने की हमारी नेताओं की इच्छा को अभिव्यक्त करता है। मित्रों, सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो और सेक्रेटरी मैटिस की एक साथ की गई ये पहली विदेश यात्रा है और विदेश मंत्री बनने के बाद सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो की ये पहली भारत यात्रा भी है और उनके साथ मेरी पहली बैठक भी है। स्वाभाविक रूप से इस बैठक में हमारे पास चर्चा के कई विषय थे। 2+2 वार्ता से पहले आज सुबह सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो के साथ मेरी द्विपक्षीय बैठक हुई थी, जिसमें हमने हाल के महीनों में अपने द्विपक्षीय संबंधों की दिशा की समीक्षा की थी और साझा सरोकारों के बहुत से क्षेत्रीय मसलों पर विचारों का आदान प्रदान किया था। भारत को स्ट्रेटेजिक ट्रेड ऑथराइजेशन के टियर 1 के लाइसेंस छूट के लिए पात्र देशों की सूची में रखने का संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका का हाल का निर्णय भारत द्वारा जिम्मेदारी से निभाई जा रही निर्यात नियंत्रण नीतियों को परिलक्षित करता है। आज हमारी चर्चा के दौरान हमने एनएसजी में यथाशीघ्र भारत की सदस्यता के लिए साथ मिलकर कार्य करने पर सहमति व्यक्त की है। मित्रों, हमारे बीच रणनीतिक भागीदारी का एक महत्वपूर्ण घटक है कारोबार तथा निवेश। इस क्षेत्र में तेजी से बढ़ते हमारे संबंध और लोगों के बीच मजबूत होते संबंध हमारी रणनीतिक भागीदारी को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं। दोनों देशों में तेजी से बढ़ती अर्थव्यवस्थाएं नए अवसरों को जन्म दे रही हैं और हमारे बीच आर्थिक संबंधों के लिए एक आधार भी प्रदान कर रही हैं। इसके कारण विनिर्माण क्षेत्र में विकास को समर्थन मिलता है, ज्ञान तथा नवोन्मेष को बढ़ावा मिलता है, नए रोजगारों का सृजन होता है और विकास के लिए महत्वपूर्ण साधनों की व्यवस्था होती है। संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका भारत के लिए एक ऊर्जा आपूर्ति करने वाले देश के रूप में भी उभर रहा है। हमारे दोनों पक्ष गंभीरता से तथा तात्कालिकता के आधार पर साथ मिलकर कार्य कर रहे हैं ताकि कारोबार को संतुलित और परस्पर लाभकारी बनाया जा सके। मैंने H1B वीजा व्यवस्था में प्रस्तावित बदलाव के मुद्दे पर एक संतुलित और संवेदनशील दृष्टिकोण अपनाने के लिए सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो से अनुरोध किया है, क्योंकि इस प्रकार के फेरबदल से हमारे नवोन्मेष और लोगों के बीच आपसी आदान प्रदान पर बहुत दुष्प्रभाव पड़ेगा, जो हमारे संबंधों को ऊर्जावान बनाने का एक महत्वपूर्ण माध्यम है। और मैंने सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो से कहा है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप और प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी के बीच में जो मित्रता है, उसका लेकर भारत के लोगों को लगता है कि अमेरिका उनके हितों के खिलाफ कोई काम नहीं करेगा। मैंने कहा है उनको कि भारत के लोगों के इस विश्वास को वो बनाए रखें। मित्रों, 2+2 वार्ता के दौरान हम चारों मंत्रियों ने भारत प्रशांत क्षेत्र के विषय पर हमारे देशों के बीच विचारों और हितों की बढ़ती समानता देखी। इस संकल्पना के पीछे जो सिद्धांत है, उसे हमारे राजनेताओं द्वारा पहले ही रेखांकित किया जा चुका है। पिछले वर्ष एपेक बैठक में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप द्वारा और इस वर्ष सिंगापुर में शंग्रीला वार्ता में प्रधानमंत्री मोदी द्वारा इन सिद्धांतों का विस्तार से वर्णन किया गया है। हम भारत प्रशांत क्षेत्र को एक मुक्त, खुली और समावेशी परिकल्पना के रूप में देखते हैं, जिसके केंद्र में आसियान है और एक साझा नियम आधारित व्यवस्था जिसके लिए दोनों देश प्रयासरत हैं। इस क्षेत्र के आर्थिक कार्यकलापों में अमेरिका की बढ़ती हुई रुचि का हम स्वागत करते हैं, क्योंकि यह हमारे अपने प्रयासों का ही पूरक है। आवागमन की सुविधा और ढांचागत विकास के क्षेत्र में साझा लक्ष्यों को प्राप्त करने के लिए अपने द्विपक्षीय सहयोग और इस क्षेत्र में अन्य भागीदारों के साथ भी सहयोग को मजबूत बनाने के लिए हमारी आपस में सहमति बनी है। मित्रों, आतंकवाद का मुकाबला करने के लिए हमारा सहयोग गुणात्मक दृष्टि से आगे बढ़ा है। पिछले वर्ष संपन्न हुए टेररिस्ट डेजिग्नेशंस डायलॉग और आतंकवाद का मुकाबला तथा आंतरिक सुरक्षा में सहयोग को बढ़ावा देने के लिए अन्य तंत्रों के महत्व को हमने स्वीकार किया है। संयुक्त राष्ट्र और फाइनेंशियल एक्शन टास्क फोर्स जैसे अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंचों में अपने सहयोग को और ज्यादा गहन बनाने पर भी हमने सहमति व्यक्त की है। अमेरिका द्वारा हाल ही में की गई लश्कर तैयबा से संबंधित आतंकवादियों की नामजदगी का हम स्वागत करते हैं। ये नामजदगी पाकिस्तान से चलाए जा रहे आतंकवाद, जिसने भारत और अमेरिका को समान रूप से प्रभावित किया है, के खतरे के संबंध में अंतर्राष्ट्रीय समुदाय को संबोधित करती है। 26/11 को हुए हमले की 10वीं वर्षगांठ पर हमने इस आतंकवादी हमले के पीछे के मास्टरमाइंड्स के लिए न्याय और दंड के महत्व को स्वीकार किया है। हमने दक्षिण एशिया के वर्तमान हालात पर भी विस्तार से चर्चा की है। भारत राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की अफगान नीति का समर्थन करता है। सीमा पर आतंकवाद को समर्थन देने संबंधी पाकिस्तान की नीति को समाप्त करने और दक्षिण एशियाई क्षेत्र में इसे एक राष्ट्रीय नीति के रूप में इस्तेमाल करने पर लगाम लगाने संबंधी उनका आह्वान हमारे विचारों से मेल खाता है। हमने अफगानिस्तान की अगुवाई में अफगानिस्तान द्वारा नियंत्रित शांति प्रक्रिया को बढ़ावा देने की दिशा में भारत और संयुक्त राज्य अमेरिका द्वारा किए जा रहे प्रयासों पर भी चर्चा की, जिससे अफगानिस्तान में सभी जातिगत गुट और राजनीतिक दल एक साथ आए। अन्य सभी क्षेत्रीय मुद्दों पर भी हमारी रचनात्मक बातचीत हुई। कुल मिलाकर आज हमारी हुई बातचीत से मैं अत्यंत संतुष्ट हूं। 2+2 बैठक से हमारी रणनीतिक प्राथमिकताओं की दिशा में हमारे दृष्टिकोण को बढ़ावा देने के लिए दोनों ओर से किए जा रहे साझा प्रयासों में मदद मिली है। भारत और अमेरिका, जो दुनिया के सबसे बड़े और सबसे पुराने लोकतंत्र हैं और अपनी अपनी विदेश नीति का स्वतंत्र रूप से अनुपालन करते हैं, उनके बहुत से साझा वैश्विक उद्देश्य भी हैं। सहयोग में समान रूप से भागीदार होने से न केवल दोनों देशों के लोग लाभान्वित होते रहेंगे, अपितु ये पूरे विश्व में शांति एवं स्थिरता के लिए एक महत्वपूर्ण माध्यम भी बनेगा। हमने आज लिए गए निर्णयों को लागू करने के लिए इस पर सतत निगरानी रखने का भी निर्णय लिया है। हम दोनों विदेश मंत्रियों तथा दोनों रक्षा मंत्रियों के बीच एक नई हॉटलाइन स्थापित करने का निर्णय लिया गया है, जिसके माध्यम से सेक्रेटरी पोम्पियो और मैं, सेक्रेटरी मैटिस और निर्मला जी निरंतर संपर्क में रह सकेंगे। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। नमस्कार।
Thank you, ma'am. Now I call upon Secretary of State of the United States, Mr. Michael Pompeo, to give his remarks.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the United States, I would like to thank Minister of External Affairs Swaraj and Minister of Defense Sitharaman for hosting Secretary Mattis and me for this first ever U.S.-India 2+2 ministerial dialogue. It is truly historic and important. Thank you. This is my first trip to India as Secretary of State, and it is an honor to travel here for such an important and successful event. Later today, Secretary Mattis and I will meet with Prime Minister Modi. We look forward to discussing how best to advance the U.S.-India relationship, one that is in a new era of growth under his leadership and that of President Trump. Today's 2+2 meeting is symbolic of our increasingly close partnership. We had many productive and forward-thinking conversations on our bilateral relationship, our shared future, and how we can cooperate in promoting a free and open Indo-Pacific. As the two largest democracies in the world, the United States and India are deeply bound by our shared values. We have a responsibility to advance a free and open Indo-Pacific that reflects those values: the rule of law, national sovereignty, good governance, the protection of fundamental freedoms, rights, and liberties, free, fair, and reciprocal trade relationships, and peaceful resolutions of territorial and maritime disputes. We know our people's ability to exercise their economic and personal freedoms depends on a strong and stable security environment. To that end, today our two countries entered into an ambitious plan to elevate our security cooperation across a number of areas. The Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement is a major step forward in our defense collaboration and coordination that will allow us to better protect the freedom and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific. We also agreed on the scope and scale of military cooperation with India as our major defense partner, a unique status that the United States has granted to India. I'll let Secretary Mattis speak on this in more detail. Today we also discussed a number of pressing regional and global issues, including Afghanistan and North Korea, and how our two countries can work together more closely to address each of those. We also committed to deepen our already strong counterterrorism cooperation. On economic matters, President Trump recognizes the long-term strategic importance of India's economy playing a productive role in the world's most dynamic and fastest-growing region. He is intent on ensuring the United States, India, and all countries can responsibly reap the benefits of an Indo-Pacific that is open, free, with fair trade and investment. As just one example of President Trump's commitment, Secretary of Commerce recently announced Strategic Trade Authorization Tier 1 status for India just a few weeks ago. This will further facilitate high-technology exports from the United States to India. The United States will continue to practice partnership economics with India and all the other countries in the region. We seek to unlock the unparalleled potential of our private sectors to meet the region's developmental, energy, and infrastructure needs, and to create an environment in which businesses and countries can thrive when they play by the rules. Today also marks another milestone for our relationship. Thanks to intense advocacy from the United States, 10 years ago today, the Nuclear Suppliers Group voted to allow India to engage in trade in civilian nuclear materials and technologies. That vote and the subsequent Section 123 Civil Nuclear Agreement opened a path for our strategic relationship to grow, bolstered defense and commercial cooperation, and expanded our people-to-people ties. We now look forward to what we can achieve over the next 10 years. In particular, we look forward to finalizing the Westinghouse Civil Nuclear Project that will provide clean and reliable power to millions of Indians. I want to close by again thanking our Indian hosts for the generosity that you have shown to me and my colleagues. The United States will continue to work with India to foster greater security and prosperity for our nations, the Indo-Pacific region, and indeed the world. And with that, I invite the Minister of Defense to make remarks.
Thank you, sir. It is my now pleasure to request Raksha Mantri Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman to deliver her remarks to the media.
Secretary of State Defense of the United States, Mr. James Mattis, United States Secretary of State, Mr. Michael Pompeo, my respected senior colleague, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, friends from the media, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have just concluded a most productive, positive, and purposeful meeting. I wish to thank Secretaries Mattis and Pompeo for their vision and commitment. We deeply value their support for stronger ties between India and the United States. Our discussions today were marked by the deep friendship that characterizes relations between the greatest democracies of the world. The commitment of India and the United States to defend our shared democratic values and expand on our common interests is clear and unwavering. In today's meeting, we reaffirmed our intention to cooperate in every possible way to ensure peace and stability, as well as to realize the aspirations of our peoples for continued economic growth, prosperity, and development. We will also work together to combat the persisting threat of terrorism and other shared security challenges. In our discussions, we explored the instrumentalities necessary to deliver on those shared objectives. Ladies and gentlemen, defense cooperation has emerged as the most significant dimension of our strategic partnership and as a key driver of our overall bilateral relationship. The momentum in our defense partnership has imbued a tremendous positive energy that has elevated India-US relations to unprecedented heights. As Prime Minister Narendra Modi had succinctly stated at his address to the US Congress a year ago, India's relations with the US has overcome the hesitations of history. Nowhere is this more true than in the field of defense. Today, India's defense forces carry out extensive training and joint exercises with the United States. Our joint exercises have acquired greater complexity and newer dimensions, both bilaterally and in wider formats. To enhance our synergies in this area, we have decided to carry out for the first time a tri-services joint exercise with the United States off the eastern coast of India in 2019. We are also putting in place an enabling framework for closer cooperation between our defense forces. The signing of the Logistics Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, LEMOA, in 2016 and the helicopter operations from ships other than aircraft carriers, the horse stack, earlier this year were important steps in this direction. The signing of the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement, COMCASA, today will enable India to access advanced technologies from the US and enhance India's defense preparedness. Maritime security has been a focus area of our participation and cooperation. To deepen our ties in this area, we will expand our interactions on maritime domain awareness. The United States has renamed its Pacific Command responsible for relations with India as Indo-Pacific Command. Reflecting a wider global participation and partnership, we will also enhance our interactions with the United States military's Central Command. Friends, one of the focus areas of the discussions was on expanding the scope and content of the US's designation of India as its major defense partner. We welcome the recent decision to elevate India to STA Tier 1 status for access to advanced technologies, especially in the defense field. I am confident that this and other measures to follow will enable our defense industry cooperation to make speedy progress for mutual benefit. We highlighted the major reforms being implemented by the government to promote defense manufacturing in India under the Make in India initiative, including setting up of defense manufacturing corridors. We welcome the US's positive response to India's request to nominate a point of contact in the US Department of Defense to help address procedural complexities and facilitate Indian companies to join the manufacturing supply chains of the US defense companies. We also identified cooperation in defense innovation as a major area of emphasis for the future, as our defense needs become increasingly driven by technology. This is both necessary and timely. I am particularly thankful to have Secretary Mattis, who has spent several years in Silicon Valley, as our interlocutor in taking this aspect of our ties forward. The Memorandum of Intent between our defense innovation agencies, which has been signed virtually last night, is a first step in this direction. Ladies and gentlemen, the conclusion of the first ever ministerial 2+2 between India and United States is a concrete manifestation of the vision of our leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Donald Trump, to take the India-US relationship to a new level. Our leaders recognize that it is no longer viable to address foreign and defense issues in a compartmentalized manner. In today's meeting, we were able to discuss a range of issues relating to our ties in a strategic framework and identify steps to take forward our relationship. Our discussions have paved the way for a new era in India-US defense and strategic engagement. Given our shared interests, we are confident that we can work together to promote peace, economic prosperity, and security in our region and beyond. I once again thank Secretaries Pompeo and Secretary Mattis for their engagement in promoting the India-US partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. And finally, may I call upon the Secretary of Defense of the United States, Mr. James Mattis, to deliver his statement to the media.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and Minister Swaraj and Minister Sitharaman. Just thank you for the warm hospitality and the professional discussions that we have had here today. It's a pleasure to be back in New Delhi among friends and representing the United States alongside Secretary of State Pompeo. And Minister Sitharaman, I would just say that I wholeheartedly concur with how you characterized the defense relationship in your statement just now. Today's fruitful discussion illustrated the value of continued collaboration between these two co-equal democracies. It's a strong relationship between the world's two largest democracies, and it did not begin with those of us sitting here before you. We inherited it, and now we ensure it is even stronger when we pass it to our successors on a higher trajectory than we received it. Since India gained its independence in 1947, our nations have shared a fundamental respect and love of freedom. Just 3 years after India's independence, Prime Minister Nehru visited the United States, in his words, and I quote, "on a voyage of discovery of the mind and heart of America." Today, Secretary Pompeo and I bring the same spirit that Prime Minister Nehru carried to Washington almost 70 years ago, promoting the cooperation which both our countries earnestly desire. Today's successful and highly productive meeting, the first ever 2+2 between our nations at the ministerial level, has further bolstered our strong defense relationship, as you just heard. We reiterated our highest respect for each other's sovereignty and committed to work together for a safe, secure, prosperous, and free Indo-Pacific, one that is underpinned by the rule of law. We appreciate India's role as a stabilizing force on the region's geographic front lines. Your nation understands better than many peace and prosperity are only attainable when all respect the principles of territorial integrity, freedom of navigation, freedom from coercion. All of these are fundamental to the rules-based order. Only then, to borrow Prime Minister Modi's words, can nations small and large prosper, free and fearless in their choices. We will continue working together to enhance and expand India's role as a primary major defense partner to elevate our relationship to a level commensurate with our closest allies and partners. Today, we took, as you know, a significant step towards that goal by signing the Communications Compatibility and Security Agreement. The landmark agreement deepens our military-to-military cooperation and our ability to share the most advanced defense technology, making us both stronger. In addition, we agreed to increase and expand our engagement in the maritime domain with a new tri-service exercise, and Secretary Pompeo and I also gained insights on a range of issues, from the DPRK sanction enforcement to counterterrorism cooperation, recognizing that both our nations have endured the effects of senseless terrorist attacks like those 10 years ago in Mumbai, which killed innocents from more than a dozen nations. We remember those lives lost as we approach the 10th anniversary of attacks this November. Today, the steps we took will pave the way ahead for an even closer military relationship. Our meeting signified the bright future ahead for our two nations, indicating the growing trust we share as strategic partners. We look forward to meeting with Prime Minister Modi this afternoon and welcome the opportunity to thank him for his strong leadership and to discuss the way ahead. And thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This concludes the press statement ceremony, and thank you all for joining.